Hello everybody, this is Danny from Deep South Homestead on Porch Time today. We finally, you see this right here? We have finally made it to the low 50s. I mean, it is just, the wind is blowing. It's like 50 degrees. It's awesome. It is awesome. We went from yesterday, like 95 heat index, this morning 50 degrees. Yes, finally we have arrived, at least having a day. Oh guys, you know, there's so much going on out here in the world today that I was just sitting here thinking about Porch Time, you know, trying to prepare for it. And, there's so much I'd love to talk about, but because of the way YouTube's going right now, we're getting demonetized left and right. We don't even have our videos put up. Before we even put them up, they're already demonetized. We have to request a manual review before we ever put them out for y'all to see. And so, you know, it's kind of frustrating because you lose all those views right up front when they demonetize them, and the revenue is what that's one of the things keeping us going right now. It's just a little bit of revenue that we get from YouTube because we don't have another job. And you know, we've said we're not going over to Patreon, and we're going to try to hold to that. I'm hoping that the wind don't affect this. I've got the camera set in a way that I hope that the wind don't affect it, because the wind's blowing pretty hard. You may hear it in the background, and you'll probably hear the birds waking up with me and everything. So, because it's still just trying to get daylight a little bit. But anyway, back to that. There's so many subjects I'd love to talk about, but I've gone back and looked, and a lot of my Porch Times have been demonetized and took away. They don't pull them down. You know, that's always a myth. People are talking about YouTube is pulling their videos. Well, that's a myth. YouTube has not pulled one video that I've done. You know, even back to my butchering videos, they demonetized some of them, and we had to go in and request a manual review, and they gave them back. But they haven't pulled a video. People keep talking about that. That's just not true. Or at least in our case, it's not true. Let me say that. But anyway, there's so much I'd love to talk about. But today I'm going to just go ahead and we're going to talk about things will change. Will you last? That's a big question, because Wanda and I sit back and there are times we get so frustrated with being right where we're at here, and we throw our hands up in the air and we go, look, we just want to move. We just want to move to a remote place and just be away from everybody and just, oh my God, where we can just be, it can be like it used to be, quiet, you know. But that's not feasible for us right now. And the thing about it is guys, things change. When I first moved here in 1989, I bought land out here. This was a wilderness area. It was a 5-mile road that I live on here. There were 3 people on 5 miles. Thousands, tens of thousands of acres around me that just nobody. And it was a utopia, literally. And the people who lived here were old people, and they've all since went on to be with the Lord. You know, any given day, I mean literally any given day, I could walk out the door of my house. If I wanted to take a deer, I could do it on any given day. If I wanted to take a turkey, I could go outside. There was always turkeys in my fields. And guys, wildlife was abundant. It was quiet, no noise. Things were just, that's just the way it was. It was really nice, you know. But in 1995, I couldn't come up with the money to buy all the land that was around me, which was another 265 acres, I think, that this one family owned, because I bought from a family out of a parcel out of a huge tract of land here, and they agreed to sell me land as long as I wanted to buy it. Well, after 1989 to 1995, I bought land almost every year. And when I got to 95 and I went back to approach them about buying one more piece of property, they told me, said, well, look, we just got to sell the whole thing. We can't just keep selling piece by piece like this to you. And I told myself, well, at that time, I said, I don't have the money to purchase the 265 acres around me. And I did buy another 10, but I didn't have, for me, I didn't like being deep in debt, and that was going to put me deep in debt. But now I'm going to tell you this much. If I'd have known what I know now, and the way the economy would have went, the way my companies would have went, I would have bought the whole 265 acres because I could have paid for it. But at that time in life, I could not see it. I kept holding back because I was hesitating. But as a result, in 95, they sold to some realtors, and the realtors came in here and broke the land up in 10-acre blocks, because there's laws when you break land up. If you break, in the area that we live at here, if you break up land and you do anything less than 8 acres, then you have to fall into what's called a subdivisions laws, and that's a whole different set of laws that people have to abide by. So they kept everything 10 acres and up. And, as a result, my peace and freedom, serenity, whatever you want to call it, abundant wildlife, all went away because the loggers came in, they logged all the timber, and the dozers came in, and the gravel trucks, and they built roads, and the surveyors were coming through chopping lines, and people were moving in and building houses, and there's screaming kids, and kids running outside hollering and screaming all the time, four-wheelers, motorcycles, vehicles, and all this stuff that surrounds me now. That peace is gone. And every now and then, like this morning, I'm sitting out because most people don't get up early. They do. Some of them do to go to work. The neighbors that live on my road are already gone to work this morning, so they've already left out. So it's just me back in here now. My other neighbor, I think, has flown out. He's gone to his job because he flies a lot. And I'm sitting here by myself back in here, and it's quiet. Now, we do have some neighbors up in front of us at homeschool, and it's pretty quiet until after dinner. When they get out of their schooling after dinner, it gets kind of loud. But we are able to enjoy some of our quietness that we used to have. But that's what I'm talking about. Things will change. When you buy a homestead, guys, locate your house and your property in a way in which, if things around you change, you can still find some sort of peace and serenity. That's why I always tell people, at least try to get 10 acres, because if you have 10 acres, you can get some sort of a buffer around you. But if you do 2 or 3 acres and somebody moves in right up against the landline, guys, your serenity's gone. We have our house and barn in the center of ours, or more or less to one side. There's a running branch right behind my barn, within 50 feet behind my barn. It's not really suitable to put a house on, so we didn't worry too much about building the barn there. But my house is kind of back out away from that, more toward the center of the property. And our animals roam all the way around us. The perimeters are for animals. And that keeps some buffer around us. Now, we do have pasture where we can see the road, but we've left timber standing between us and the blacktop roads, so that from the blacktop you can't see that we're even down here. And that's what I'm telling you. Things will change, but will you last if it changes? It's all about, your homestead is all about designing it in a way to cope with whatever happens around you, because when things change, they don't always change for the best. Now we don't have the abundant wildlife anymore that we used to have. When a deer comes out now, it's usually way up in the night. way after dark, after everybody's gone to bed and it's got quieting back down again, then the animals will come out, the deer will, and they'll meander around. I mean, we found tracks in our yard right here the other morning where they've been here in the yard eating acorns, but they did it during the middle of the night. And turkeys is something that when Wanda and I got married 4 years ago, the turkeys were still coming in the field back here, but and then the next year we saw 2 or 3 in the field, but now we haven't seen a turkey in, like 2.5 years now. And used to, every morning I got up here, especially in the spring, you could hear the big old gobblers are gobbling in the distance, and in the swamps behind us back here, they were just gobbling up a storm, and you don't hear that anymore. They've moved on from where they used to be, and they don't do any gobbling anymore, and they don't come out like they used to. So now Wanda and I are trying to work a deal with a neighbor to actually purchase some turkeys from him so that we can start raising our own turkeys so that we can have turkey again. Because we don't like to go and buy these things from the store for Thanksgiving and Christmas, because they pump them full of all kinds of chemicals and stuff, and we don't, most of them are just water laden anyway to get the weight up in them. We don't like that. They've been raised on stuff that just is not good to be raised on, and so we're trying to move forward and change our homestead. We cleaned out one of our chicken pens. We sold some of the chickens, and we moved 2 pens actually together so that we can create a new pen for the turkeys when we get them. We're letting it kind of dry out. We're going to go in and bleach it all down. We're going to scrape and clean the ground real good, and take all the manure out of the pen, put it on the fields and stuff like that. Let it overwinter in the fields anyway, and break down some into the soil so that it's decomposed well. And, we're trying to get it clean so that there are no pathogens there for the turkeys. But, we're moving forward with our homestead. I mean, we sold a pig the other day. Some Mexicans wanted one to cook, so they came here and we shot it, and they took it in the back of the truck home, and they went ahead and butchered it out to eat. We're able to still live some of our lifestyle here. Now, does that mean we'll always be able to? I don't know, because things change. Our country's changing on a daily basis. There's places in the country, we've been putting up these videos about our cabins, talking about codes and stuff like that, and people are always like, oh, we have no codes in where we live at, and we don't have this, and we don't have that. We can do what we want, and I understand that, because I'll be honest with you, before Hurricane Katrina here, I could build anything I wanted. I didn't have to have a permit. I didn't have to have anything. I could put up any kind of shed, any kind of structure I wanted, and it was no problem whatsoever. But after Hurricane Katrina come through, and this place was devastated and tore all to pieces, literally it was worse than a war zone. In order for the federal government to grant money to rebuild all this with, they had to sign off and go under international codes. And now, as a result, they're wanting to come in and put community water everywhere for people, and they're wanting sewage put in for people and all this kind of stuff, which stuff that we do not believe in here. We have not let them come and bring water our way. We still have a well. We're going to keep a well. We are not going to hook up to community water. Now they may come in, like some of the places they come in and they put the spigot out there and they charge you even if you don't hook up to it. You're still charged, and that may happen. But guys, things are changing in this country, and it's not changing for the better. It's changing for the worst. Because you see, the Industrial Revolution, things stayed pretty much the same throughout history. Man used horses and hand tools and stuff like that. But when the Industrial Revolution took over, life for man and freedoms began to change and go away, because mankind saw the ability to have power and to exercise rights upon people that, that they used to didn't do. And guys, let me say this. This is not new, okay? All you got to do is go back and look in history. our earlier presidents who did not like what the people were doing, Abraham Lincoln was one of them. You know, who, if he didn't like what people were doing and they wasn't following his agenda, he would shut off supplies to certain parts of this country just so that he could force people to do what he wanted them to do. And you don't read about all this in history. You got to go dig this kind of stuff up to actually find it. And these kind of things were done. They were massive massacres and stuff that took place just for agendas that they had. And there's nothing to say these things won't happen again. These kind of changes can come. But will you last? Will your homestead last? Do you have what it takes to make your homestead actually function with different changes that take place around you? People are constantly having to move off of their homesteads and move to another location and start over again where there's less threat from people and less threat from communities and government and stuff like that. But guys, the bottom line is this: it's going to gradually hunt us all down eventually, because there is an agenda to stop us. And I'm not trying to make a controversial video here. I'm just trying to tell you, this is life, this is reality. And we've got to figure out new ways to combat this. And the one way I keep trying to tell people is do permaculture. Guys, I'm not a big permaculture advocate as far as pushing permaculture movement, but look, I see it as an avenue of being able to live off the land. I see it as an avenue of sustainability. It's not necessarily that I'm a tree hugger or that I'm some sort of a globalist that says, a green environmental type person or anything like that, because I'm not. What I'm trying to tell you is that permaculture will work. And the reason I say that it will work is because God created permaculture. Look around you, that the forests thrive. The wildlife thrive in the forest. They live off the forest. They eat what's in the land. And nobody has to fertilize anything. Nobody has to till anything. It's because the right things grow in the right places. Nature makes it that way. All we've got to do is figure out what goes where. And once we do that, then all this heavy fertilization that we're trying to put into all these plants is not necessary, because if we put the right things in the right places, they'll thrive on their own. Some things grow well in partial shade. Some things grow well in full sun. Some things grow well up under and next to the trunks of other trees. I mean, we learned this about huckleberries. The huckleberries, they grow great up against our oak trees and up under our oak trees and stuff like that. Our black gum trees and things. These huckleberries just thrive underneath that because they're in a partial shade and it stays kind of cool and the leaves fall on the ground. And guys, all these things are going out, and I'm guilty of doing the same thing. When the leaves fall on the ground, I'm out with the lawnmower, man, I'm mowing, trying to mulch them all up, and I'm trying to rake them up and get them and go put them somewhere in the garden and all this kind of stuff. And the bottom line is those leaves are part of the carbons that ground needs in order for it to be a healthy soil. And because of beautification, we're out here trying to, or what we call beautification, we're trying to clean up everything. And Wanda and I have come to a point now when the leaves fall out here in the front, we just leave them. There's no grass out there anymore, hardly. Most of the grass has died, but you know what? That just means I don't have to mow. I can go out and put something underneath them trees that thrives in the shade, and I've created permaculture. And we're, like I've told y'all before, we're pushing for the goal of being able to go out and 365 days a year find something on our property that's edible. That means that we are becoming sustainable. Now, I know a lot of y'all live in areas where it snows all the time, and sometimes snow stays on the ground for months on end. And it stays way below zero, and it may be a little bit difficult for y'all to, I guess you'd say, to go outside and get something to eat at any time of the year. But the guys, even y'all can do that. Because I've read lots of stories back during the Great Depression times where people grew carrots and they grew all these things that were root crops. And before the snows came, they would go in and pile deep hay on top of them and then cover them up with layers of burlap and stuff like that. And then when the snows come, they would go out and dig underneath that and get up fresh carrots to eat and different fresh root crops. So it can be done. It's just how much are we willing to do that? Wanda's been doing a lot of research into the Great Depression eras about the different foods that they cooked and the different things about coffees and different things like this. And guys, it's amazing what people went through just to survive. You know, I've been doing a lot of research into the Appalachian times during the early years before the Great Depression and then during the Great Depression, learning how that those old people lived up in those hills and mountains, and the Cherokee Indians, and how they survived before white man came in here and actually destroyed their land, and some of the documents, the stories that have been carried on, the diaries and different things I'm reading about how they done things. And it's really been an inspiration to me to be able to do these things, to learn, because I'm learning things right now that, as much as I've learned over the years, I'm finding things I didn't even know. And one of them, and this may sound so stupid to most people, and y'all may know this, but I never even give it any thought. What is the difference between a bucket and a pail? You know, I never give that any thought. I mean, to me, a bucket was a bucket and a pail was a pail, but I never even thought about what's the difference. A bucket, for those of you who don't know, and probably 90% of y'all already knew this, I was a dumb one in this. A bucket is little at the bottom and big at the top. A pail is big at the bottom and little at the top. Pails is what they carried on the wagon trains and different things like this whenever they were going cross country, because it was large at the bottom. They could fill it full of water and it wouldn't turn over in the wagons as they went along through the rough roads, where if they'd have put water in a bucket, the bottom was little and the top would have got top heavy, would have spilt over, and they'd lost all their water. See guys, these are things that I come across while I'm studying about the way mankind used to live, and it's blowing me away at how much I don't know. Like for instance, I kept coming across this topic called cooper, and I kept saying, what is a cooper? And I got to looking, and coopers were guys who, or women who built wooden butter churns and wooden buckets and wooden pails with staves and stuff. They actually handcrafted. They were called coopers. And never heard that word here in the South. You know, I have to admit, and I was like, wow. You know, this is amazing. This is amazing. I gotta pull my hat down. I look like Festus. From Gunsmoke. For those of you who don't watch Gunsmoke, I was beginning to look like Festus on the camera there. But anyway, you know, there's so many things I'm still learning, and I'm going to try. Literally, I've never made a wooden bucket or a wooden butter churn or anything like that. And after looking at these guys doing that, some of them are still in their late 90s doing this kind of stuff and busting trees and splitting out the staves, and you know. Guys, there's a side of me that wants to try this. I may fail miserably, but I've got to try it just to see if I can do it. You know, because I'm one of them kind, I love challenges, and especially with wood. So this is something I may be doing. But you know what, guys? I'm sitting here rattling on and on and on. And I got to keep this video short because today is really a hectic day for me. So, got a lot to do. It's first cool day, so we got to jump out and make sure we get things done because it may not last. But anyway, things will change, but will you last? Ask yourself that question. When things around you change, do you have what it takes to still succeed at what you're doing? Can you change with it, but yet still keep your serenity, your homestead, your peaceful life? Here at Deep South Homestead, we've been able to do that successfully so far. We're looking forward to keep doing it in the future. So guys, look, we love y'all. We appreciate you, and thank you for watching Porch Time, and thank you from Deep South Homestead.